Welcome to the FemiNinja Project, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Show. Hey everyone, and welcome to the launch of the FemiNinja Project. I am your host, Cheryl I Love, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight. And I really am a ninja. I am a second-degree black belt in an ancient Japanese martial art called Ninpo Taijutsu, the art of the ninja. It's kind of an obscure martial art. Not a lot of people know about it. They're not familiar with it, but it is a fascinating art, and it's actually quite beautiful. I began my training at the age of 47, and honestly, I never went looking for the art, but the art came looking for me. And once it got its grip on me, it would not take no for an answer. I'm actually somebody who you would never expect to be a martial artist, and martial arts and studying a martial art was never on my radar. It was certainly not in my DNA, but the universe, God, whomever it is that you ascribed to, had other plans for me. And I met my sensei when I was 44. And my sensei was actually my acupuncturist long before he became my teacher. And every time he would put needles in my legs, I am a dancer, so I have some pretty strong and well-developed legs, and he would put needles in my legs and he would get a very far away look on his face. And he would say, you know, with your legs and my coaching, I could teach you how to kill with these things. I would lay there just horrified. I couldn't believe that anybody would think that way, let alone say it out loud. So I just, graciously thanked him for thinking of me, but turned him down. No, I think I'll save my killer legs for ballet class, because that was who I was. I'm a very fussy girl. I'm very feminine. I really like things that are softer and the finer things in life. I like, tutus and toe shoes and tiaras. I like Pilates and pedicures. I like going shopping, going out to lunch. I like doing things that make me feel really girly, getting my nails done. Not all the time. That's pushing it a little too far. But those are the things that I liked, and martial arts was just something that was never on my radar. But Mark would go, that was his name, that was my acupuncturist and eventually my sensei. He would go on and on and on about the art of the ninja and talk about how wonderful it was and how beautiful it was. And honestly, I just wanted the man to shut up, leave the room, let the acupuncture needles do their work, and let me get some relaxation time. But once he started talking about the art of the ninja, he just wouldn't shut up. And basically there I was, pretty much a captive audience. I was literally pinned to the table, so there wasn't anything I could do about it except I would say, I really just need a rest, or I really don't want to hear this right now. But once he got talking about the art of the ninja, there was no stopping him. And I even thought about maybe getting another acupuncturist, but he was really good at what he did. And besides that, I really couldn't bear the thought of looking for another practitioner, starting all over again, somebody that I didn't know. And there was a reason for that, because predators are everywhere. And just 3 months before I met Mark, I fell prey to one. I walked into a doctor's office as a healthy, vibrant 44-year-old woman, just for a routine checkup. And I walked out a statistic. And yeah, it does happen. And it's really amazing that the way people treated me after, when I tried to report it and I tried to get help, was even not only just as devastating as the actual assault itself, it was even more so because of the way I was treated. I was called a liar, I was called crazy, I was seeking, monetary compensation that I didn't, deserve. There was something wrong with me. So I did what a lot of women do. I shut up. I bottled it deep inside myself, pasted a big old smile on my face, and I pretended that everything was just fine in my life, even though I was already sliding down that vortex of hell known as PTSD. And honestly, I can say this now because it's been long enough, it's been enough years. And I really believe if I even had one person to support me, one person who said, let's, do something about this, let's get you some help, let's report it, I really believe that I would not have lost my mind the way that I really did. So I kept everything bottled up, and about a year later, the proverbial stuff hit the fan, if you know what I'm talking about, and I cracked under the pressure. And when that happened and Mark heard my story, his campaign to get me on the mat and to train with him went into high gear. He just kept trying to convince me to take classes with him, that it would help me heal. It would really, just help me in so many different ways, mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically. I just didn't see it, so I kept resisting him. It took 3 whole years from the time I met Mark to the time I finally capitulated and said, okie dokie, I'll take a few classes. And I told him I was just going to take a few classes to learn a few self-defense techniques, which I really did need at the time. And then I was going to quit because I just knew I was going to hate it. Well, guess what? I didn't hate it. I fell in love with the art. I fell in love with the training. And I really fell in love with the sense of empowerment that I got from training. But it was a little bit difficult because even as I was contemplating, okay, I will sign up for classes and I'll do this, but I still really didn't feel very comfortable walking into a male-dominated, testosterone-infested martial arts world and begin training. And I was really, really apprehensive about being the only woman in class because it takes a tremendous amount of courage and trust to walk into, as I said, a male-dominated, testosterone-infested dojo and begin training. I had neither one. I had no trust. I had no courage. I had no confidence. I had nothing. I didn't even have a whole lot of muscle tone. I had lost quite a bit of weight after this incident happened, and I was just pretty pathetic, frail, and puny, and I'll be the first person to admit that. So Mark assured me, oh no, don't you worry about a thing. There are plenty of women in the dojo. I have a lot of female students, and a lot of them are upper level, they're higher ranks, and they would be happy to take you under their wing and teach you the art of the ninja and mentor you and help you every single step of the way. Well, either he lied intentionally or altered the truth just a little bit, or was going to say anything just to get me onto the mat, because the first time I showed up for class, I was not only the only woman in class, I was the only girl like within a 2-mile radius. I had just come from ballet class. My hair was still up in a bun and everything. So there I was, this little middle-aged ballerina surrounded by a bunch of Neanderthals. It was so uncomfortable, and it was just, as I said, the most uncomfortable experience I ever had in my life, and I was absolutely terrified. And I almost left, and I don't know why I didn't. I stayed there. And things kind of got a little bit really bad. When Mark started class, he just plucked one of the black belts out of the line and started beating the stuffing out of him. I don't even know what he was doing, but I had my eyes closed and my hands over my eyes the entire time. I just couldn't bear to watch. The sound effects were bad enough, with the sound of flesh pounding flesh and the grunts and the groans and the scream, followed by a sound of a body being slammed into the mat. That was enough to just make me run and hide, but I couldn't. I was kind of like stuck there. So when I opened my eyes, I saw a black belt heading directly toward me. And he stopped in front of me and he bowed sharply and he said something in Japanese, "Onegashimasu." Well, I froze like a deer in the headlights. I didn't know what to do. And so finally I did what came naturally to me. I just lifted up the edges of an imaginary skirt and I did a nice little graceful curtsy and I replied, "Enchanté." And he looked at me like I was insane. He kind of looked around for Mark for a little bit of assistance, and then I could tell he wanted to say something. And he shook his head and he kind of shrugged his shoulders and he introduced himself as Wes. And he said, "Okay, now I want you to kick me." And I just started twirling my ponytail and I said, "But I don't want to kick you. I have never kicked anybody in my life and I don't want to start now." And he got a little smile on his face and he says, "It's okay. Just try it. You can kick me." And I said, no, I don't want to hurt you. Well, that smile got a lot bigger. And you can just, it's a little patronizing too. And you can just see this word bubble above his head that was like, aw, isn't she adorable? She thinks she can hurt me. And he said, don't worry, I can protect myself. You go ahead and kick me and it's going to be just fine. So at this point, I'm looking below his belt because martial artists wear their belts pretty low on their hips. So I'm looking at the area south of that, if you know what I mean. And I started stammering and stuttering and I said, but I'm afraid, I don't want to hit you, in the sensitive parts. Oh, that smile got bigger. He thought I was just absolutely precious. And he said, well, you don't worry about that. You go ahead and kick me. Just make sure you aim above the level of the belt. And I'm like, okay. Once again, I had no idea what to do. I had never kicked anybody before, so I did what I knew. I lifted my leg and I drove my pointed toes deep into his abdomen with all of the strength and the power of a grand jeté flying across a ballet stage. Well, apparently I could hurt him because he fell backwards a few feet, let out a huge grunt, and there he was lying on the floor, writhing and clutching his belly. When he finally caught his breath, he said, that was pretty good. Actually, that was really good. Where did you learn to kick like that? And Mark had been watching the entire thing, and he walked over to me and he just looked and said, how many years of ballet? And I looked up at him and I said, 27. And he said, ah. And he said to Wes, don't let the package fool you. She's a lot stronger than she looks. And Wes agreed. He stood up and he bowed to me and I curtsied again. And that is how my journey into this strange new world of men and martial arts began. And I learned so much during my martial arts training and during those years of training. And it started from that first day. That very first day, I learned a couple of important life lessons. Number one, when you don't know what to do, just do what you know, because it worked. And actually, when I curtsied to Wes after he bowed to me, I completely flummoxed him. I rattled his brain, not intentionally, but he wasn't expecting that kind of a response. And I'm here to tell you, some of the people out there, the bad guys, the predators, even people who maybe are friends of yours, maybe even that not so funny uncle or the friend that can't keep their hands to themselves. They have an agenda and they have an expectation of how you are going to respond to what they do. And when you do something different, that gives you enough time to get away because they are not expecting you to respond in a different way than what they have planned. So, first lesson, when you don't know what to do what you know. Number two, I was a lot stronger than I thought I was. And every single one of us, I think, are a lot stronger than we know. There is a power, a strength in each and every one of us that is just waiting to be released, but it's been suppressed by maybe personal experiences, our past, things that we've been told about ourselves, maybe even things that we hear from society, from the media, from other people, all the things that we cannot do or should not do because we're either not smart enough, not strong enough, not pretty enough, not handsome enough, whatever. It's all that negative talk that gets in the way, not only from other people, but from ourselves too. That negative self-talk, and that can sabotage our efforts to be strong and powerful and finding our voice and standing our ground. So those are some of the things that I'm going to talk about in the FemiNinja Project. And I'm going to share a lot of the secrets of the ninja. But just don't tell anybody, okay? It's just between us, because I don't want to get in trouble with the secret society of ninja police. But I'm going to share the secrets and the principles that I learned in my training. Oh, the best part, I haven't even got there yet. After that first day, I kept going to class. I kept going to class. I'll share a lot of those stories with you. I don't know why I kept going, but I did. I just kept showing up And 10 years later, after that first day, I became Mark and the school's first female black belt. In 20 years of training, he had never had a female achieve such a high rank. So there I was 57 years young, vibrant and healthy at the time. And I was the middle-aged, terrified middle-aged ballerina who was so frail and so delicate and scared of her own shadow. I was the one that became his first female black belt. That was, oh my gosh, you're going to be able to do the math, so you'll know how old I am. Oh my goodness, that was 5 years ago. Since that time, he's only had one other woman achieve the level of black belt. So our art and our federation is very, I don't want to say exclusive or elite, but it's very disciplined, let's say. So it's not that, oh, you show up and maybe a year or two later you get a black belt. There's a lot more to it than that. But the things that I want to impart to my audience and to share with people, again, of all ages and all walks of life, because men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Project. I would not be where I am right now if it were not for the many magnificent men in my life. And I really don't sign up for all of this man bashing. I think that we really need to respect each other. And that's another thing I got in my martial arts training. I've always had a lot of respect for other people, but I didn't know how to respect myself. And once I was able to find that self-respect, the self-awareness, and to be able to appreciate, again, that inner strength that I had, my life began to change and magic began to happen. So these are the things that I really want to share with you. Or you can just do what I did and, go and train and spend 14 years in a smelly dojo with a bunch of sweating men, letting them throw you around, hit you, kick you, punch you, pin you. And the funny thing was, there were no women when I was training. Well, there were one or two that would show up every now and again, and I'll share some more of those stories because some of them are pretty funny. But they would show up every now and again and then leave. And I kept looking for these mythical creatures that Mark had told me were in the dojo, all of his female students, and some of them were actually even higher ranking. And I kept waiting for them to show up, but they never did. He actually did have a woman who achieved the level of brown belt. But when I began my training, she was nowhere to be seen. No one told me what happened. At first, it took a couple of years for them to tell me that she had broken her leg, her tibia and fibula, throwing somebody or trying to throw somebody in the dojo. So that was, again, a little secret they didn't tell me because Mark knew I'd be out of the door as soon as I heard that. But she kind of did it to herself. She let her ego get in the way. She wasn't being honest with herself. And she was trying to throw the biggest guy in the dojo just to try and prove something. It was late in the evening. They were both tired. It did not go well. And she basically threw him directly on her leg and broke her leg. So she disappeared for a long time, tried to come back for a while, but it was just too difficult. So she didn't come back. So that was one of the women. Another one was the level of purple belt. So that was right below the level of brown. And she kind of went crazy, but nobody told me that one either. So I kept looking for somebody to show me what it meant to be a female ninja and how to maneuver around this new world that I was in with these strange men and martial arts. So basically, nobody was there to teach me the rules, so I made up the rules as I went along. So I told the guys that they were able to, I had my permission to hit me, kick me, punch me, throw me, pin me to the ground, but for God's sake, do not mess up my makeup. That would just piss me off. That would make me mad. And the guys really didn't know how to handle a woman like me because if a woman did come into the dojo, they were usually a little bit more sturdy and not quite as fussy as I was. They never had a woman that would have to excuse herself to step off of the mat to refresh her lipstick, or someone that said, no, wait, you're not going to punch me right now. I'm having a hot flash. Gotta take some time out here. But eventually we learned how to get along with each other, and some of the best friendships, the deepest friendships and greatest, most satisfying relationships I had were with some of the guys in the dojo. And my husband noticed the change in me right away once I began training. Just a few weeks after I was taking classes, he said to me, you know, I can really see a difference in you. I can really see you look better, you sound better, you seem happier, you have a lot of confidence. You know, when you come home from the dojo, you just really seem different. And I thought that was pretty good because he's really not all that observant. Years before that, I had actually had to lose some weight after I finished physical therapy school. I'm actually a PT. I'm a recovering physical therapist. And, you know, by the time I finished graduate school, I was really out of shape and pretty pudgy. So I had intentionally started losing weight, and I did it very, very slowly. Over a course of 9 months, I lost 15 pounds. And everybody noticed except my husband. And so I never even mentioned it to him just to see if he ever would say something. So once I hit that 15-pound mark, I was in my kitchen getting ready for work, and I was just in my bra and panties. And he was at the kitchen table, and he glanced over, and I was reaching for something in the cabinet. And he looked, and he did a double take, and he said, "Whoa, you're ripped. Have you been working out?" And I just looked at him and I said, "Michael, I lost 15 pounds. And he said, "No, you didn't." Every woman wants to hear that, right? And I said, yeah, I did. And he says, "Well, you didn't need to." And I just laughed. Again, the man is not that observant, but he could see the change in my demeanor, in my attitude, in my spirit. And spirit is something else that we're going to talk about on the FemiNinja Project. But I really appreciated the fact that he could see that difference in me, and I told him how much I really enjoyed the training. I loved working out, and it just really was really doing something for me, but I couldn't even figure out or put into words what it was. And finally I said, "You know what the best point is, or the best thing about it is, Mike?" And he said, "What?" And I says, "It's a great way to meet men." So he just looked at me, was silent for a few seconds, and said, "Whatever makes you happy, honey." So that's what I'm talking about. The many magnificent men in my life who have supported me, encouraged me, coached me along the way. So I want to share all of these things, you know, with you. I've got some fantastic guests that I have lined up for the FemiNinja Project, because we're also going to talk about not only standing your ground, finding your voice, living well and looking good, exploring a lot of alternative health type of things. As I did say, I am a physical therapist, a retired, or I hate to use that word, a recovering physical therapist. I was in private practice for 18 years, and I closed my practice about 2 years ago, exactly 2 years ago, to pursue a new career as a speaker, a podcaster, and an author. I have written a book, Forever Fit and Flexible, Feeling Fabulous at 50 and Beyond. And in the book, I share not only my personal experience as a chronic pain patient. At the age of, when I was in my mid-30s, I actually was a chronic pain patient for 2.5 years. It was so bad, I was told that I would never be able to do my grocery shopping and my laundry all in the same day, because the arthritis in my spine was so severe that I would end up being bedridden. And when I looked at this expert that told me that, because she said the arthritis in my spine was so bad, and I looked at her and I said, "You don't understand. I want to go back to ballet class." And she actually laughed in my face. And she said, "Oh, you don't understand. This is your new normal. You are never going to have the life that you want and the life that you had before." And then she recommended that I go on disability or start applying for disability because I was going to need it. I was absolutely devastated. I wasn't a physical therapist at the time. I was a respiratory therapist. That was my first career. I went home and I hit rock bottom. I was part of the medical community, the medical profession, and for them to put that kind of a label on me, to take away my hope, to destroy my dreams and to shatter my spirit like that was absolutely devastating. I hit rock bottom, and a couple of days later, I found a fighting spirit, and I said, "No, this isn't who I am. This isn't what I want in my life, and this isn't who I'm going to be or what I'm going to be." So I actually fired all of my healthcare providers, much to their chagrin, because, oh my God, I was so fragile. I couldn't survive without them. Well, guess what? I did survive. and I thrived. And I taught myself how to move again, how to move the way we learned when we were babies and infants, just by exploring the environment, what worked for us, what things would exacerbate my back pain, what things would make it calm down a little bit more. It took a long time, I'll be honest. And I started acupuncture. And it took about six to 8 months, but by the end of that time, I was pain-free. I was incredibly stiff and immobile, but that's a story for another day. And I actually ended up going to physical therapy school, getting my master's degree in PT just 3 months shy of my 40th birthday, and went on to pursue a life of healing, self-education. I am a Pilates instructor. I became a Feldenkrais practitioner, which is something else I'll talk about. So I want to help people understand that there are a lot of different alternative modalities out there that can help you heal and to help you find different ways to be able to recover from things that you might be struggling with, whether it's your health, your fitness, relationships. So I have, like I said, a long line of incredible experts in their field and people that I'm going to bring onto the FemiNinja Project to share their expertise to help you. And I also want to build a strong community of people with like-minded ideas and people who can be supportive, and how to find a way that we can support each other through life's challenging times and celebrate our accomplishments, our achievements, and the good times in life. Because I think when we have enough people like that to get together, to share our stories, then everybody is lifted up and everybody succeeds and everybody has the opportunity to live that life that they were meant to live, and to be strong and powerful, but still feminine or masculine. And again, just to be the best self and live the best quality of life possible, because that is what life is all about. And that is the spirit of the ninja. That is the spirit of the FemiNinja, and that is the goal of the FemiNinja Project. So now you know a little bit about me. Actually, you know more than I have ever been comfortable sharing with people in my life. I'm typically a very private person, but that ship has sailed, and now it's time for me to share my story as well as other people's stories and to hear yours as well. So thank you so much for listening. Oh, one last thing, that yes, this is the launch of the FemiNinja Project, but it's not, it's a rebranding and a relaunch of my first podcast called just FemiNinja, the FemiNinja. A year ago, I didn't even know what a podcast was or why I would possibly want one. But I entered a contest online. It was a woman locally, a radio talk show host who was starting her own website that was just featuring all female podcasters. And I had been following this woman and listening to her radio show for at least 3 years. And when I saw she was starting this program and this project, and she was inviting people to enter this contest for podcasting, and I thought, I wonder what this is all about. Maybe I could learn a little bit something about podcasting if I ever wanted to do it in the future. Well, I entered the contest, and long story short, it was a whirlwind 6 to 8 weeks. And I did not win the contest, but I was invited to join the platform. So you can see my earlier episodes, if you can tolerate them, on the ladieschitchatclub.com. I've actually been listening to some of my first episodes, and they are so cringeworthy. I swear my ears bleed a little bit when I start listening to them, but you got to start somewhere, right? It was just like my experience in martial arts, not even knowing how to bow and say onegashimasu when my partner did bow to me, but I learned. So that's part of the journey of lifelong learning and being able to laugh at yourself and say, you know what, I'm not very good at this, but that's okay. I will learn and I will get better. So that's one more thing, and then I promise I'll stop, is we would bow to each other at the beginning of every class. And when we worked with a new partner, we would bow to them and we would say onegashimasu. And that means, please teach me. And it didn't matter It was the white belt saying it to the black belt and the black belt saying it to the white belt, because we all learn from each other. Again, this is the whole theme of the FemiNinja Project. And the other thing that we would say when we were finished working with each other, or at the end of every class, we would bow and we would say, Arigato gozarimashita, which means thank you for what you've given me. And I'm going to close by saying, Arigato gozarimashita. Thank you so much for what you've given me, because even on this first episode, I'm just really feeling the power. So thank you. And that's a wrap on another episode of the FemiNinja Project. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.